Okay, opening the South Maui Community Plan Advisory Committee meeting at 5:30 p.m. And can we start with a roll call? You got your own microphone. Okay. Vilina mai na lalo ke komeke o lalo o ke kaiulo no ka papa ho lalo no Maui hama. Vilina mai no I ka poe o ke ena ho lalo o ke kalano o Maui a me ka leho o Maui ne. I nana e ho alohe kako I ke iahiahi ke kai ho ike. I na kuhi pono ho no ka hoohana ana I na mahele aina. Mahope e kuka kako I ka hoohana ana I na apana o maalaya I ka wā I hiki mai ai. So we are starting today with a presentation by the Long Range Division of the Planning Department on the new land use designations proposed for the community plan. And the land use designations are covered in pages 67 through 82 and 175 through 176 in the draft plan. After public testimony, we'll work on the plan for the Ma'alaya subarea, which is pages 76, 77, 88, and 89 in the draft plan. Next time, we will, so this time we will only be receiving the presentation on the new land use designations, and we can ask questions, but we can't make any decisions. So next time we'll schedule time to do that. And then after that, we will work on the North Kihei subarea. And starting today, Akaku is providing a live broadcast from the meeting. And today they're just doing a trial run, but hopefully starting next week, they'll be allowing remote testimony. This is something keep getting asked over and over and over again. Everyone says, when are you going to be allowing this? So that's all good news. So we are ready for the presentation on the new land use designations.
Sorry, I'm having trouble with the live streaming. Okay, so the purpose of this presentation is to become familiar with the community plan designations. These designations are used in the community plan maps to identify where and what type of development the community envisions. Before we talk about community plan designations, it is important to understand where in the community plans are in the many layers of land use controls. Of course. This is just a second. It's not letting me go to the next one. Slideshow from beginning. Okay. So this image shows the land use layers from general to specific. The state land use districts are the broadest. Then there are the 3 county layers. The first county layer is the Maui Island Plan growth boundaries. The Maui Island Plan growth boundaries are more specific than the state land use districts and establish the location and type of future development and where to grow. The community plan designations provide more specificity about the placement and character of future growth, how to grow. Finally, Maui County Code zoning districts. Zoning districts regulate land use and intensity by specifying the dimensions and locations of development on a parcel of land. It's important to keep in mind that we are operating at the level of community plan designations, this 30,000-foot view, not zoning. The updated designations align with the Maui Island Plan's directed growth plan's primary objective to ensure our developments, towns, and neighborhoods offer high quality of life by fostering complete, equitable, and healthy communities that meet the needs of residents. The updated designations also acknowledge the importance of preserving the character of existing neighborhoods and unique places while providing the opportunity for a range of housing types. Now we'll walk through each designation. Each designation has a description of uses and essential factors such as mobility and access to parks. Example images illustrate the development patterns, building types, and typical streets that characterize the designation. There are two residential designations, rural residential and residential. Rural residential aims to preserve the rural character and serve as a transition between agriculture and more urban development. Large lot subdivisions and family farms characterize these areas. Residential encourages a range of housing types to provide mixed neighborhoods and affordability. Park schools and small-scale neighborhood-serving commercial uses are included. Pedestrian, bike, and bus connections promote mobility, equity, and health. Examples of residential in South Maui include the Kawahine Village in North Kihei and the Ka'ono'ulu neighborhood. There are 4 mixed-use designations: rural village, neighborhood center, small town center, and transit-oriented corridor. They all have a similar combination of residential, commercial, and public uses. The main differences are the scale and density of development and the number of neighborhoods they serve. The purpose is to capture the subtle differences in our communities. Hanatown is lower density and intensity, while Kahalui is higher density and intensity, and are further distinguished by their location and character. The purpose of these designations is to identify areas where the community support mixed-use development or where mixed use already exists. The first and the smallest is the rural village. Designation is intended to preserve the character of rural towns. Rural villages are relatively small and include a mix of commercial services and public quasi-public uses that support nearby communities and may include residential. Keokea near Grandma's Coffee House is a great example, as well as Pauela Cannery Mall in Haiku. The next is neighborhood center, is similar to rural village, but is located in a more urban or suburban setting. Neighborhood centers provide services that support nearby residential neighborhoods with pedestrian-oriented commercial nodes and may include residential. Ulalani Shave Ice, where Suda Store used to be, is a great example. Small Town Center is similar to neighborhood center. However, Small Town Center covers a larger area and serves more neighborhoods. A vertical mix of uses with a ground floor commercial and second floor apartments and medium density housing types are encouraged. As with all of the mixed use designations, parks, schools, safe walking, biking, and bus service are an important part of the mix. Dolphin Center is an example of small town center. And the most intense is the transit-oriented corridor. It is the most dense and intense of the mixed-use designations. It is intended to create transit-friendly areas with higher density commercial, employment, light industrial, and residential uses, characterized by pedestrian-friendly activity centers, vibrant street life, and multimodal corridors. In TOC, you might live in an apartment or a townhome, take the bus to work, and the kids can ride bikes to school, and families can walk to a park or cafe. Wailuku Town is an example of the density and intensity of transit-oriented development. Maui Research and Technology Park today doesn't exactly match the description of TOC, But over time, with residential infill and commercial development, as well as adding more bus service, bike paths, and safe sidewalks, it may. The resort hotel is typically medium to high density with a broad range of uses primarily intended to serve visitors. This designation is used for areas where there are existing entitlements to develop hotels or resorts, and the designation supports the inclusion of resort businesses like shops and restaurants. The resorts in Wailea are a good example. Employment center are intended to encourage a broad range of uses like light manufacturing, processing, and business incubators, and include amenities that serve employees such as restaurants, retail, and live-work spaces. A current example of light industrial area is near Ohukai Road. The focus of this designation is business and light industrial with the possibility of some residential. Finally, we have industrial. The industrial designation is intended to permit intense industrial and manufacturing activities. An example is the Pu'unene sugar mill. The special purpose district designation is intended for uses so unique that no other designation can apply. Airports are the most prominent example. Then we have public, quasi-public designation is the same as the existing designation, as intended to provide facilities for public use or benefit. You'll notice that many of the use of the designations allow public, quasi-public, such as churches and schools. But this designation is typically for planned or existing large-scale government projects, nonprofit, or educational uses. UH, Maui College, and Lahaina or Kihei Civic Center are examples. Let's see. The park community plan designation is intended to preserve and manage lands for recreational activities, including golf courses and related amenities. Examples include our county beach parks, neighborhood parks, and regional parks. And then the open space community plan designation is intended to preserve and manage lands for Native Hawaiian traditional and customary uses while protecting sensitive ecological resources, scenic resources, drainage ways, and green belts. Open space areas support natural processes such as flood management and erosion control. Many of our gulches and wetlands across the island are a good example of open space. The agriculture designation promotes agriculture development, protects agriculture resources, and supports the island's agricultural character, economy, and lifestyle. Examples include Kula Ag Park, Kanapali Coffee Farms, and the agricultural land that surrounds South Maui. State conservation is a designation that recognizes lands within the state conservation districts and protects wilderness areas, beaches, watersheds, and other sensitive areas. Examples include Ahi'i Kina'u Natural Area Reserve and Kealia Pond. So now we're going to do a quick test. It's going to be now it's time for the test there, Daniel. So getting comfortable with the community plan designations. The purpose of this activity is both to get more familiar with the community plan designation and to test your understanding of the designations. As questions are asked, please write them down so you can see if you were correct. The correct answer will be revealed. Starting with 12 of the 15 community plan designations, we have rural residential, residential, neighborhood center, small town center, transit-oriented corridor, resort hotel, employment center, rural village, special purpose district, public, quasi-public, park, and industrial. Which designation focuses on planned or existing large-scale government, nonprofit, and educational uses? It's an easy one. Public, quasi-public. Did everyone get that one? Okay. Right. Which three designations allow manufacturing and light industrial? Light industrial and manufacturing. Transit-oriented corridor, employment center, and industrial all allow manufacturing and light industrial. Which designation allows noxious industrial manufacturing uses that might not be compatible with other uses? Which two designations allow light industrial because it is compatible with other uses like retail, restaurants, parks, and residential? There you go. Good job, guys. Which designations include transit and multimodal transportation options? Good question, Daniel. All of these designations include transit and multimodal. Okay, now we're swapping out industrial with agriculture and replacing public, quasi-public with open space. These are agriculture and open space are the two that kind of don't necessarily have the transit and multimodal options. So which designation is intended to preserve and manage lands, recreational activities, including golf courses and beach parks? Yes, I heard the right answer. Which designation is intended to preserve and manage lands for Native Hawaiian customary uses and to protect sensitive ecological resources? Yes, open space it is. Which designation establishes, protects, and allows for appropriate infill of low to moderate density residential neighborhoods with limited commercial uses? Yes, residential. And which designation is medium to high density, includes a mix of uses that primarily serves visitors? That was an easy one too. Which designations encourage a similar mix of residential, commercial, and public uses like schools and parks? Rural village, neighborhood center, small town center, and transit-oriented corridor. So these are the scale and intensity ones. So which creates a transit-friendly areas by encouraging higher density residential and higher density commercial? And then which three designations are intended to preserve Maui's small town character? Which designation is appropriate for a small grocery store, church, or park around four corners of an intersection that serve the surrounding rural area? This designation encourages small-scale buildings with mom-and-pop shops that are walkable from a nearby neighborhood. This designation is intended to preserve the character of Maui's smaller towns and allow for development of new low to medium density mixed-use centers that serve multiple neighborhoods. That is the one. Which designation is for uses that are so unique no other designation can apply? Yes, special needs, Dan. Which designations allow agriculture uses for and farming? There's two of them, rural, residential, and agriculture. Which one preserves and protects agriculture resources? Yes, agriculture. And key takeaways. Residential establishes and protects and allows for appropriate infill of low to moderate density residential neighborhoods with limited commercial uses. Transit-oriented corridor creates transit-friendly areas by encouraging higher density residential and higher density commercial. Rural village, neighborhood center, and small town center are intended to preserve Maui's small town character. And special purpose district is for uses that are so unique no other designation can apply. Thanks for participating.
Thank you. So at this time, we're opening for public testimony. And we have two topics. We have the topic of the land use designations that was just presented, and then we have the topic of Ma'alaya's future.
All right. Mahalo, and nice to see you all again. My name is Lucy Andine. I'm testifying as a former member of the GPAC. It's funny about this 10,000-foot view. That's what we were told at GPAC. We were told, this is the 10,000-foot view, but when it gets to the community plan, that's when you get really specific about what's going to be in there, street by street. So I hope you guys get that chance, because zoning should not be your close view. Why? None of you will participate in zoning. There'll be some hearing you never hear of, and the decision will be made, and maybe a couple people from the public will know about it and come. This is the time for the people in the community, who are you, to really get down in the weeds and say, what is this going to look like? So I'd like to speak first to the categories. Well, it's a little confusing, yeah? I mean, some of them are like old-fashioned kind that we're used to, industrial and rural and residential. And I understand the intent that not everything fits, one little definition. But this transit-oriented corridor, the idea that we're going to have any place on Maui that you could walk to for all of your needs other than downtown Kahului, I mean, it's crazy. There's no supermarket in Wailuku anymore. Let's just get real. These things are not actually going to exist. And there's no incentive for them to exist. What's their incentive is to make money with strip malls and stuff like that. Who knows if people even want that kind of thing. But some of these designations, they just have definitions that you could drive a truck through. And if it were me and there was an empty lot next door and someone said, well, this is going to be an employment center, I'd go, what's going to happen here? I don't know. Oh, it's all going to be fine. There's going to be transit. There's going to be this. There's going to be that. But I'm not making up the plan. The person who owns the land is going to make up the plan. And if any of you have been involved in this stuff over the years, the people that own the land, they look at the community plan and they go, oh, that's kind of a suggestion. What I really want to do is an outlet mall here. Oh, I didn't see that listed in any of these categories. Well, we want to build it. It's going to come because it kind of fits under this vague definition. So I think some of these definitions need to be tightened up more. Thank you. Can I switch subjects now to Ma'alaya? So case in point, Ma'alaya. Oh, well, that was just 10 seconds. Well, I'll switch topics anyway. I'm on my rant. So Ma'alaya is red. It's a transit-oriented development center. I think the Ma'alaya Village Association submitted some comments saying, gosh, we don't see ourselves that way. And basically, the only thing that's left to develop there is the parking lot of the Ocean Center. I don't know anyone in Ma'alaya that can meet the majority of their needs by going to that triangle, unless you just like eating at one of the local restaurants or something. There's no hardware store. There's no schools. It doesn't fit the definition of transit-oriented development. There may be a transit corridor there someday, but I would try to pin down what transit corridor means. Does it mean another big road, or does it mean a way that people can get between one place and another and not have to use cars? Because when we were in GPAC, that's what we were looking at, transit corridors. Could we plan for a Maui that wasn't completely dependent upon cars, that had some other form of transportation, whether it was a trolley system, whether it was a maglev, whatever, but that it wasn't just cars, cars, cars? Because even in small towns, anyone ever try to get a parking place in Makawao town? Very walkable town. Hard to park. Paia town, very walkable town. Hard to park, because everybody drives there. Let's not mythologize about our small towns and think that, that somehow they're just going to be places you can walk. They just aren't. And we could do that. It would be a radical shift, block off traffic, have bypasses, this and that. But I don't think we're going to build new places that are different from the places that we have. So I think we should look at these definitions and see what's real and see what we really want to live with in our community, and then decide which ones actually fit our community. So, and please don't make Maui a transit-oriented development red area. It just doesn't fit. Thank you.
Clarifying questions, Professor Daniel?
Sorry.
Hi, Lucianne. Do you think of Ma'alaya as being a small town? Like Paia is a small town.
It kind of is in its own way. It's a funny kind small town because it has world-class tourist facilities and then condos, and then it has individual residents that live in houses. And, one gas station. It's a very unique place, but I think the people there actually sort of see themselves as a small town scale. There's a lot of cooperation among residents. It's not just a bunch of condos in the middle of a city somewhere where no one ever talks to each other. There's quite a bit of social cohesion there. So I think that viewing it as a small town rather than the transit-oriented development makes more sense.
And the one other question I have is, I know you were in GPAC. That was, 13 years ago?
Yeah, 2006, 2007, yeah.
It's even more than that. So I attended several GPAC meetings, testified at a few. So at the GPAC meetings, what did the GPAC understand was the role of the community plan within the general plans?
To be very, very detailed in land use. To really decide, they said, you guys do the broad strokes. In fact, they assured us, they said, these are a suggested urban growth boundary. Doesn't mean that that's what the community plan should decide to fill in every space there, because the GPAC said this is where, this could be. And in fact, the GPAC version and the version of the Maui Island plan for South Maui that was passed by the council, completely two different animals. I'm sure Mike remembers that. It's like thousands of more units were added by the council because people came and made their case. The landowners, they didn't care about GPAC. They just went directly to the council. It has the final vote.
Just one last question. Was the proposed urban growth boundary from the GPAC different from what is currently now?
Yes,
The urban growth boundary?
it was, yeah.
Was it smaller or larger?
It was smaller.
Okay, thank you.
Other clarifying questions, Kyoki?
Oh, man, I'm busy.
Sorry, Lucianne. Thank you for coming tonight. Sorry for those who are familiar with GPAC. I'm not. So during your time at GPAC, what, if any, was spoken about Kealia?
Kealia Pond was considered a very important resource in the natural resource category, parks and natural resources and open space. Unfortunately, and GPAC had a whole map that showed these everything from sensitive lands that were like wetlands and gulches to places that are preserved, like the National Wildlife Refuge that includes the Kealia Pond. And unfortunately, by the time the plan got adopted, they got rid of that actual map, and they created a quote-unquote diagram, so it would have no legal implications of anything that was green space park, even things that were protected already were considered suggestions on this diagram.
So,
Yeah.
excuse me.
So-
So no mention of the road?
Well, the road was included in our policies. And in fact, this is one thing we were criticized for. They said, oh, you should leave that for the community plan. And we said, well, it's in the community plan. We're following the community plan by saying this is one of the priorities, is that the road be moved to the other side of the wetland, and you let the natural processes in the ocean make that a bike path or something along the ocean, but not anything you need to defend and create barriers to erosion.
Mahalo.
Yeah.
Other questions for this young? Thank you. Next testifier.
Okay. Hi, good evening. This wasn't exactly what I thought I would testify about today, but in thinking about this, I think about Ma'alaya, and I see plenty of open space, and I realize that's not what's being proposed, but I don't know how you do the mixed uses, but I see the place where Kahikili was taken and his body was taken around the heiau 3 times. I see the first cinder cone sand dune taken down. I see the place where I've had many limu classes and where the limu has been very abundant, Kealia. I'm not sure how you come to your designation, but it seems to me like maybe the condominiums are kind of out of place there, and maybe this should be more of an open space with minimal residential area. And I don't know how you come to that, but I really wanted to address the what you spoke about last week and what I saw. The answer, I want to come as Nanaike Kumu, that whole idea. I come from Wailuku. I've lived there. I was born there. And I want to say that as you go through this designation, I really want you to think about how you affect the water that comes from where I live. Because I have been speaking about this until I'm blue in my face, that you, South Maui, need to start conserving water. You need to see this precious water that you take from where I live and change the water, my drinking water, through my life, but you don't use it as if it's precious. And I think that whatever you're doing in your designations, you should think about that. How do you affect us who are forced to give up our water and get restrictions to people who use twice as much water per household? And I'd like to come with more people from Wailuku at some point to tell you exactly how we feel and how maybe we could start to work on a solution so we won't just be upset that we get the restriction and you take the water. So thank you very much, and I see you have your work cut out for you, and I hope you will remember all the places that should be open space in Ma'alaya. Thank you.
Any clarifying questions for the testifier? Daniel?
Aloha, Miss Apana. You live in the Old Sand Hills in Wailuku, correct?
Yes.
And do you folks, have you had in your area water restrictions? Have you had water restrictions, say, in the past year or two in your area?
Yes, we have. We seem to have them every year. And every dry season, our lawns turn brown. And people secretly water their lawns just to keep them somewhat alive. So this is our reality, because someplace else takes and uses our water and continues to build for people that may not even really be residents and local people of this island. So, thank you so much.
And just another question, Chair. You talked about wanting to see more open space in Ma'alaya. Would you support the land behind the condominiums on Ha'ole Street? Would you support that being designated as ag land?
Yes. I really don't believe that there should be high density or even, I mean, it's higher density than I think should be there, as evidenced by the problems with drainage and sewage next to the ocean.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Any other clarifying questions? Thank you. Next testifier.
Aloha winala ka'umau aloha, good morning. Good evening, my friends. I'm Zandra Amaral Kraus, originally from Iao Valley, where I was born, the very mouth of Iao River, which they call Wailuku River now. Then I was raised at the other end along the Waihehe. You know where that? The other end of the river, literally, where my father raised cattle from the beach up, first acre, this acre, pigs, cows, chickens, and the natural thing that keeps a dad and a mom who works at Maui Land and Pine to support 12 kids. We had a very humble beginning. But to address something that Auntie Apana said regarding the waters, what we need to remember is there were more kalo patches, the Cerizos. There's so many families in Waihehe who grew up. I myself depended on that water. The rivers flowed. It was water that we needed for our cattle and our pigs and us, the children. But I'd like to talk about your designations here in South Maui. As you all know, I live at the end Mauka side of Ohukai, abutting Haleakala Ranch. Now, Ohukai has been deemed forever a very unsafe place, streetwise and home-wise. Our children get threatened by big trucks every day. Not good. So as you look at your designations and you look for industrial around residential, which something that we are suffering right now in our neighborhood, big trucks on the Hayes property coming in and out. 2 children nearly got run over. That is not. I gave testimony yesterday, to the council regarding it being referred to Mike Moran and the Kihei Community Advisory Committee. So I know that they'll do what's right because I know they understand. But as you look at these designations, keep in mind, was that amusing, Jennifer? So funny. Keep in mind that we need, if we're going to maintain a small town environment, kind of like where I grew up in Wailuku, Iao Valley, Central Maui, the industrial, the housing were placed so that they could be in harmony. Not like Okai. There's nothing in harmony in a small-time atmosphere, but jeopardizing the safety and welfare of our kupuna and our children. It's not up yet. Yeah, now it's, okay, give me 10 seconds more. Because you interrupted my fault. Portuguese, you cannot interrupt. But that would be my humble request. Small towns are good. When you look at Ohukai especially, it's a growing community. We need to designate so that it can be in harmony, not with the people who's making the money, but also with the residents who already lived there. And I humbly ask this, and I know you'll do it, right? And I look forward to the Kihei Community Advisory Committee looking into our concerns. Appreciate you all. Mahalo. Ahuiho.
Thank you. A question from Mike.
Mahalo, Zandra. Yeah, that's actually, it's called South Maui Advisory Committee, and I am a member of it, and we have 2 other members of it. But the Planning Commission decided not to send it to us.
Are you serious?
So they said no, they weren't going to.
So what
refer it.
decision did they make?
Their decision was that they will make the decision. They will not refer it to the South Maui
That
Advisory
is-
Committee
that is-
for a hearing. And that's was their decision, and it was only one commissioner who spoke against that idea. He said, well, he felt it should go to the local community if it's a local project, and their decision was not to do so. So that's their right to do it. That's the way the law is written. But just to be clear that we will not be hearing it.
That is sad. That is sad. And it's steps like this, my friends, that really disillusion your citizens in the community when it comes to them being in control, or at least feeling like they're in control of their neighborhoods, of their backyard. Mike, thank you so much. I'll talk to you later, but I am so sorry to hear that. I am so sorry to hear that. And I look forward to meeting with the Planning Commission and find out what the reasonings were. Perhaps they had good ones, perhaps not. But I'd like to know. I'd like to find out. Not only for me, but for the community. Thank you, guys.
Are there clarifying questions? Daniel?
Hi, Xander.
Hi, Daniel.
Can you come back next week again? Because next week we will actually be covering the North Kihei sub-area where your Ohokai is. So we won't be talking about that tonight. We'll be talking about Ma'alaya. But you can come back next week if you're free.
I'm here every day. Yes, 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 yes,
Any other
yes.
clarifying questions?
Yes.
Thank you. Next testifier.
Now my time is up.
Good job. Good job. Hi, hard act to follow, huh? Doug Ballard, South Maui resident, also with Maui Tomorrow. Lucianne covered a number of things that I was going to cover too, and that is, the need for some level of specificity and clarity in the designations. When I look at the small town center, for example, that's a pretty wide open designation. The term commercial is used, and commercial, which is kind of a central part or an important part of that designation, is a pretty broad term. And if you look in a dictionary, you'll find a number of different definitions. One of which I found in the American Heritage Dictionary was the production of goods and distribution of goods. Now, that's probably not what's intended, but words like that will be parsed over in the future as development proposals come forward. And so clarity of purpose for these designations, I think, is very, very important. Also, I don't mean to concentrate too much on small town center, but please keep in mind your existing commercial areas when you're looking at areas to designate for small town center. It's very easy to over retail a geographic area. And when you do that, you ultimately harm, as customers are drawn to new areas, existing commercial centers. And when they start to decay, the neighborhoods around them start to decay. So I would encourage you to be very mindful of that if you could. The other point I want to make is that, also that I think certainly probably the better developers want some clarity in these things too. So they know what to expect and they can develop plans with some sense of certainty around them. So I think it helps both sides to do that. The last point I want to leave with you, if I could, is that you really should not be relying at all on speculative development plans when making your decisions here. Developers come and go, plans change. What endures is the work that you're doing here now, in how you're defining your designations and how you're establishing where those designations will apply. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Any clarifying questions? Thank you. Next testifier.
Good evening, Larry Stevens. Nice to see you all again. I want to start off with a quick point about Waihe'e, which is that the Land Trust is working very hard to reestablish the fish pond that was there in older days, so that we can again make that a food source and restore the natural water flows in that region. I think they've just gotten a grant that will help them along that path. More to the topic of tonight. There are two parcels that I want to talk about. One is the land that goes down from Kealia Pond towards Kihei to the canoe clubs. That land is owned by Maui Pono, and it's kind of become a campsite for a lot of people in the last several months. My proposal would be that you find a way to encourage the Natural Wildlife Refuge there to take over that parcel so that it can be managed as part of the wetlands that is there, instead of being kind of an afterthought for Maipono, which is all it can ever be. Second parcel is the land that's Malka of the Ma'alaya Triangle and the condos that are there. Once owned by Spencer, now owned by another Maui landowner. That land needs to never be developed. It needs to become some kind of water retention system so that we can keep a bunch of brown water from happening in Ma'alaya Harbor and Ma'alaya Bay. There's been a proposal that was accepted by the county originally to purchase that land and turn it over to the state so that they could make it a conservation land. That transaction never happened for various reasons. Now the current owner is not interested in selling to the county for reasons of his own. There may be other funding sources that we can look at, but I would encourage this group to say that land should never be developed. It should be open space or a park or something of that sort over the long term. It's about 250 acres, a big piece of land. There shouldn't be any housing in that area because it's very fire prone and it's very windblown. So it's not a good place for people to live just because of those two things. And we have other lands that is much more appropriate than that land for housing or other purposes. Thank you.
Any clarifying questions? Vernon?
Yeah, thanks. Update on the Maui Pono. On Monday, they showed up with dole care, MPD, starts serving notice for the houseless, and then they put up the signs, no trespassing, but beach access also. And I believe Friday they're gonna, clear that place up. They hired a company to do all the environmental hazard removal from the site, from end to end, because it's really bad. I know because I talk to them a lot, and they're open about doing the land thing in the back for the back road, for the future. But we also talking about, and this body can chime in the near future, that because the sea level rising, that place should be in conservation all the way to Haycraft Park. So that's the goal with that parcel.
Thank you.
Kyoki?
Thanks for coming and testifying. I just had a question for you. You mentioned the Ma'alaya Mauka lands, Mauka of the Triangle. Are you aware of the eminent domain that was proposed and passed through vote by council?
There's been a lot happening there, and I've been part of the discussions with the county over the wastewater treatment plant that they're trying to get going, and a lot of other things. I'm just saying, for the purposes of this organization, I think it would be great if they designated that land with open space or something of that sort.
Yeah, right now I think it's ag zoned. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Thank you.
Any other questions? Daniel?
Hi, Larry. Nice to see you. I just want to be clear about where these Maipono lands are along North Kihei Road going towards Honuapi'i Line Highway. Are they the Makai lands? The lands Makai?
Yes, it's just the strip, the Mackay strip that's there.
I did not know that was owned by Maipono. I
Yeah.
thought that was state land.
No, Maipono.
Yeah, that was A and B. So when they did the switcheroo, that's part of the switcheroo. For the whole Mackay side, yeah. All the way to almost Haycraft, part of Haycraft Park. That's it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Next testifier. Going once, going twice. Public testimony closed. Okay, so let's start with any questions and discussion with Karen about the land use designations. So we're not going to make any decisions today, but we can get clarification on the presentation. Yeah, question, Kilke?
Possibly, but it's not. It might possibly not be now. When we go over the maps, I think.
Sorry about
Yep.
that. Everybody awake?
So
What? I can't hear.
Ma'alaya specifically we'll do a little bit later, but first we'll just do this general, small town center versus transit-oriented corridor, that kind of thing.
Okay, I think maybe later. when we
Okay.
get into the.
So I do have a proposal to make the land use designations much more specific, and it is on the website, and it was been on the KCA website as well. But we'll go into that next week. Daniel.
If we're done and when we're done asking questions of Karen, and I'm sure there are many questions. As a point of order, I'd like to read the vision statement.
Go ahead.
So the vision statement is page. It's for those who want to follow along. I have so many glasses. Sorry.
You don't know it by heart? We expect next time it's going to be by heart.
I'll memorize it next time. If every week someone else will memorize it. Yeah, how's that? I'll memorize it next time, and then I'll pick someone to memorize it next week, and then they can share. How's that? That's a good challenge. I like that. Okay, so it's on page 29. It reads, South Maui tomorrow. This plan reflects the future the South Maui community is striving to achieve. The vision is the community's expression of this future and should guide the actions of decision makers throughout the life of the plan. South Maui's vision. South Maui's beaches, coastal waters, and wetlands are restored and thriving, with affordable housing close to good jobs and a variety of transportation options, including safe walking and biking paths lined with trees. The region's businesses, parks, and neighborhoods are connected, maintaining the small town lifestyle. Cultural resources are protected and celebrated, enhancing South Maui's sense of place.
Thank you. Any questions for Karen? Okay, then let's go on to Ma'alaya. So I just want to point out so everyone has this clear. I did provide a document that shows the 1998 community plan, the designations, how it was envisioned back then, the proposed plans, and then kind of illustrating the request from the Ma'alaya Village Association. And it's important, I think it's really important to see that in the 1998 plan, huge development was planned for the Mauka lands. It was a project district, and there was going to be golf courses and a community center and lots of housing, and none of that has happened, of course. And now no one's even talking about it, and it's not proposed. But I think that boiling it down, the two things that I think are controversial and that we'll need to spend some time on today. One is the designation of the triangle as a transit-oriented corridor. In the 1998 plan, it's just called commercial. And the other one is the proposal by the Maui Village Association to change the designation of most of the properties along Hau'oli Street, the condominiums, from multifamily or residential into hotel resort, which would mean that on any redevelopment, they could turn into hotels, a bunch of other things, they would not be returned into housing for local people. But let's see, we should probably just start with the first page there, which is page 76. Could we get that up on the screen?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Wayne.
can we get the map that you want to discuss on the screen right now? I'm concerned about identifying or putting hotels on whatever you just described.
Absolutely.
Planning Department?
Yes, absolutely. But I think we can probably just get this page 76 out of the way, and we can focus on the map. That's like the second page. Because I don't think there's really anything controversial on page 76. So if we can just do that first, then we'll get right into the map right after that.
Do you want me just to read it out loud?
Go ahead.
Okay. Subarea 1, Ma'alaya Kealia. Subarea 1 is located in the northwest portion of the community plan area. Its northern boundary borders Pohakea Gulch, then follows the coastline south along Honopi'ilani Highway and North Kihei Road until it reaches the southern end of Kealia National Wildlife Refuge. This roughly 5,000-acre subarea is largely unoccupied, containing only Ma'alaya Village and Harbor, with a population of 370 residents. Subarea 1 contains several recreational areas, including portions of the Lahaina Poly Trail traversing Kealoa Ridge, the Maui Ocean Center, and Kealia National Wildlife Refuge. Covering over 600 acres, the refuge is one of the largest remaining natural wetlands and coastal salt marshes in the Hawaiian Islands, and home to a variety of native and endangered waterbird species, meaning the salt bed. The Kealia area was once used by Native Hawaiians in the production of salt.
Any comments, or would someone make a motion to adopt the proposed text? Kilke? We can do that, yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Planning Department, I don't see it on the map, the area that we're talking about where hotel use is going to be designated with this vote. How many acres is on the map and how many units can be built?
That's the next page, but I think we can get through this page first and then get to that one very, very shortly. Kilke, did you make a motion?
I wanted to discuss it, so in order to get to that, if it means motion to adopt and somebody seconds, then we'll get going with that.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Daniel.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is just a quick paragraph. It has a lot of useful information. My thoughts kind of go back to in the very beginning when we were talking about maps. The Ma'alaya Kilia area in this South Maui Plan District is actually, two different ahupua'a, and a lot of it is Waikapu, and the rest, just so you guys know, where I'm referring to, I live in a small residential strip on the Lahaina side of the harbor. That area is in the Ukumehame ahupua'a, and these are all important because we spoke about it. Archaeologist Tanya talked about it. We're making decisions on areas that probably should include, in my opinion, other people, besides just people like myself who was born and raised there. If I can comment about the Lahaina Pali Trail, I think it'd be important to mention that it's historic. In this, if we're able to revise, can we revise this, or are we?
Yes, we can. You
Okay,
can propose
so I can make a proposal to add historic in front of the Lahaina Pali Trail. I'm not sure if a lot of people who traverse that understand the feet that walked before them on this. I've had people come up to me and say, wouldn't it be nice to widen it so we can mountain bike on it? And I go, whoa, dude, this trail was originally planned for ali'i only. I mean, it was made for ali'i only. And if you understand the history of Ma'alaya, there's a lot of stuff there. So that's my motion.
This is an amendment. And Daniel, okay with that amendment?
All right. Yes.
Okay. I wonder if, would you like to amend your own motion as well to add that the sub-area includes two ahupua'a?
Yeah, that's kind of why I mentioned it. I just want to let you guys know that and
Yeah.
see what you guys' comments were. Because when you look at the traditional divisions, right, Pohakea Gulch is a very important landmark that divides the Ukumehame side and the Waikapu side. The foothill of the mountains is what divides Waikapu and Ukumehame. And the reason why that's so important is they both, and Vernon can probably reiterate a little bit better, but somewhere near the harbor, somewhere near the ocean center is where one ends and one begins, depending on how you look at it. So while Ma'alaya is thought of as one area, there's much more to the dynamics of this place that needs to be kind of acknowledged, I feel, and understood.
Sorry, Vernon?
So last week, Thursday, I reached out to the families, a few from Waikapu, because I find it's difficult and awkward that here we're weighing in and making plans for another moku, another ahupua'a. So I reach out to those that live there. Not much of a reply back. It's pretty much left to us. But even when we're looking at this map tonight, again, it's awkward that we're weighing in on someone else's, vahi, their place. So what we're talking about is everything that is in Waikapu. and part of Ukumehami. So if you like, we can put the right language in there, you know, add those two aupua'as if you like, because this is in the moku of Wailuku. Our community plan, I believe, go almost to the golf course, pretty close to Waikapu Golf Course for South Maui District.
I think it's right on the edge, yeah.
Yeah, so again, you know, like, if you want, we can put the right language in there, because we are traversing into we crossing boundaries. That's what we're doing, you know, and it's kind of awkward.
Chair, if I can just make a comment. So I hope everyone kind of understands too that for me, you know, I'm offering Manao on my behalf, and I don't usually like to speak for other people, but sorry guys. No one else remains. Sorry. Find it difficult to express what I'm trying to say. I'm speaking on behalf of those that do not remain. Naones, Crockett's, Hussies. So, I'm trying to channel that. Thank you.
Karen, could you maybe propose a sentence about it, the two ahupua'a we can look at?
Yeah, we all kind of trying to figure that out, right? So how we include that, because this is history. Yeah, we put it in. That it's awkward. You know, I think we should put the right language. I like what we have right here. This is good. But I think we have to put in, you know, this is in the Waikapu Ahupua'a. Kavika, you have something?
The only comment I was going to make, and this is just for clarification, sub-areas 2, 3, and 4, I don't believe we specify ahupua'a also. We do call out all the various ahupua'as, including Wailuku and Ukumehami, in the section 1 of the framework. So I understand what you're saying, is that in this particular sub-area, we are crossing those boundaries, which actually should involve or could involve other people. My only comment is that, I guess for consistency, if we're going to call out ahupua'a in sub-area 1, that that's something that we should consider for 2, 3, and 4 as well.
Daniel?
I think we should use place names as often as we can, wherever we can, and we'll probably do that in all the sub areas. Make those additions. So I think the first sentence would be a good place to put that, you know. Sub-area 1 is located in the northwestern portion of the community area, and it includes this moku and ahupua'a. I think you can put it right in the first sentence. That seems like a maybe an appropriate place for it. What do you think?
Yeah, thank you. See, that's why I like this collective brainstorming. That sounds like a good idea. And I understand too, Kapika, I appreciate your Manao. So you guys see the trickiness, yeah? It's like what we talked about in the past. Like, I don't want people to think that like, just because I'm in Ukumehami, like Maui is it's all interconnected. Like if we go neck bone connected to the shoulder bone, we get to Kealia. And now you're talking about because of the Kealia rivermouth area, there's actually a division in Kealia too. Yeah. So there's Palalua, right? Palalua was an area. So all these things can be, when we breathe them, we revive them as far as their life, yeah? We breathe Ha into them, so that's why it's important. You guys please understand. Thank you.
So putting it right after there, can we propose language next week, including the Ahapua'a, and then you guys can approve it next week? And like if you guys suggest changes, just say the planning department will make those changes and you can approve them. And then we'll do the same thing with the maps, so you can see the changes that are made to the maps, and you can say, yeah, that's what we meant.
Thank you, Karen. And if lightning strikes my brain, I'll email you. If I have some kind of epiphany that I need to get to you, I'll get to you. Thank you so much.
Including the historic Lahaina Poly Trail. Yeah. And any other comments on this section? So can we adopt it, and then with the assumption that we will have changes to add or adopt next week? Okay. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Any objections? Wayne?
Mr. Chairman, does this area have Keoki? Does this area have cultural and archaeological significance to you?
The cultural and archaeological significance to me, the knowledge I have is only scratching the surface, and from what I know is extremely significant. Much of the archaeological cultural sites have been destroyed via the building of the harbor and the sugar industry. But what remains is a lot. Some I choose to share because I feel it might be time, but some I keep a little bit to myself, and I hope people understand that. That's just kind of how it goes.
In your heart, would you like to see the area plundered,
In my
destroyed?
Yeah. So I feel like what little is significant, but I'll just say what little has been done to Malaya has had devastating effects. It is proven the sewage problem, the runoff problem, those two things are high on priority lists. And I'm not affiliated with any community groups, just so everybody knows. These are just one person's view who's born and raised there. We need to fix these problems before we even think of building more stuff, and then be very careful with what we build. Because again, it's a very fragile ecosystem that has been damaged badly. In the short time that I've been on this earth, I can see really bad differences from when I was a keiki to now. Lemurs, what is that? I don't even know what. We used to pick half a dozen variety in Malaya. They don't exist anymore. We got to figure out why. You guys.
So this is all the next item. Can we just get the first one out of the way, and then we can start on that? We have a motion. We have a second. Are there any objections? Okay, fine. We have adopted the text with expecting the correct additions next week from planning department. Now on to the next page, which is the map.
Point of order.
Daniel.
Can we take our break?
Yes. 5-minute break. Say nothing.
7 minutes.
7 minutes.
7 minutes. Okay. Eat some food.
6:50 at 6:53 p.m. I don't know if you guys noticed, but the planning department has a secret plan to keep us here until 2 a.m. Are we going to foil that plan? Okay, can we get okay, we got it. Okay, that's the map. And why don't we enlarge this? Yeah, there we go. So we can see the specific area. So as you know, as you've probably already seen on the maps, the part on the left going down where Keoki lives, those are houses, and then the purple part above that is industrial. That's like the harbor. And then we have the triangle, which is the red, And then we have the condos and a few houses, the yellow there. And then the blue is that's public, that's county land. And then the green is Mahipono agricultural land currently. Is that the that Maui Electric, yeah. So why don't we, unless anyone has a better idea, why don't we address those two issues head on individually? The first one being the triangle, which is currently mostly parking lot. I mean, it's we have the Maui Ocean Center and Pacific Whale Foundation and the shops there, but then we have Carl Jr. and the gas station and then a big parking lot. So proposing this as transit-oriented corridor, reading the text is kind of envisioning that it's going to be redeveloped. It's going to turn into something different with various things. And well, we just heard that transit-oriented corridor is the highest density. Daniel?
I always imagined it as a transient hub, which is different from the designation of transient-oriented corridor, and which would may include residences. I personally have trouble with the designation that's being proposed for that narrow strip. You have the Ocean Center, which is probably world class, and it's probably one of the anchors. The other anchor is Carl Jr. But yeah, I don't know. I don't see it as a fit. I mean, in the old, the current plan, it's commercial. It's designated as commercial, and it is all commercial right now. So someone's going to have to persuade me to keep it designated as TOC.
If it was a blank slate, if there was nothing there at all, just the location would actually make it ideal for a transit-oriented corridor. I mean, a place where people could easily get to South Maui, Central Maui, West Maui, but it's not a blank slate, and there's not much there.
Oh, there's parking. That's what's there. And people do use the parking. Often I go down there and well, it's not all full, but I would say half the parking lot is full during certain times of the day. So the parking is needed for the commercial, for the harbor. You know, people charge, I don't know if they charge, I guess. Yeah. I can't see it being used for residential purposes. I can't imagine putting up an apartment building on that view corridor, blocking the view towards the ocean, for example, depending on how high you build things. I don't know if that's it. Anyway, I'll let others speak.
Chair up.
Go ahead.
So, for the record, Daniel Kanahele is not affiliated with Carl's Jr., nor does he get endorsements, but they do make good burgers. So there's a strip of land, yeah, Daniel. There's commercial space, right? Right now it's just dirt. I think the original intention was to have businesses buy those lots, and planning can correct me if I'm wrong, but buy those lots, and they would have the parking right next to it. What I want to know is it's already being used like as a, park and ride. Maui bus goes through there and stuff. So I think the biggest concern is the magnitude of what is proposed in here. They're talking about, expanding residential to help bear costs of regional wastewater system, but these costs, from what I've been hearing, have already been kind of ironed out. We don't really need to expand residential in order to cover the cost of wastewater for the condominiums. Maui Bay Place, where I live, now that's another issue, because you have only, I think, 2 houses that are on upgraded systems. The rest are on the old cesspool, which needs to get mediated. So that's kind of the situation in Maui with I just saw the mention of wastewater in here, and I didn't really jive with it, to be honest with you, as far as like having more residents and businesses to spread the cost. The cost has been already figured out.
Everett?
Keogat, I don't think the cost have been, I know that's what we've been told, but I don't believe it. I mean, just knowing what it's going to cost to do that, and knowing what the cost that we were told it was,
Right.
there's just no way in the world it could be done for that little amount. So I don't know who's going to pay for it. I don't know if it's, and I'm not endorsing the higher density, but I'm just regarding just the wastewater treatment issue.
Yeah.
I don't see.
If the committee sees fit, I can ask for a brief presentation specifically on that matter by those who have been involved, because it sounded pretty good to me when I heard about it. And they had the land designation figured out. Mahipono's been very cooperative from what I understand, which is a huge part of that cost, let's face it, right? Well, you got to start with the land.
Yeah,
I mean, you're the developer, I'm not, but I'm just saying.
But the land's always been available. I mean, they've been very generous with the land.
Yeah.
But just the cost to construct it,
Yeah.
I don't believe those costs. I don't think they're.
Okay.
I don't think they're accurate.
Maybe we
But
can.
and I'm not endorsing the higher density. I'm not.
Sure.
But if they're relying on the existing density to pay for that plant, it's not going to get built.
Okay.
So I don't know. I think
there's a discrepancy with that. I'm not trying to
no.
get in a debate with you.
There's definitely a discrepancy.
Right. If you guys want, I can get somebody in here to do a 15-minute.
I think if that's going to be built, it's going to end up being a county-wide project. It's going to be the county.
Yeah. I still can't imagine it. I don't I mean, like as it is right now, the parking lot gets almost full. You know what I mean? With just between Ocean Center, people parking to get down to the harbor for their boat trips and all that kind of stuff.
I think a lot of people carpool. I think a lot of people
and
park
carpool.
there.
There's a carpool side.
Go out to the west side.
Yeah. There's a carpool side too, closer to Carl's Jr., where everybody gets their catalytic converters ripped off right there. Yeah, that's the spot. So if you guys look, behind the condos is the yellow strip. The TOD is the red. That green ag area right there, that's not Mahipono. Huh? That's privately owned, correct, Karen? So that blue right there is a drainage ditch. The one I've been asking Uncle Wayne to come check out. That marvel of engineering. But yeah, so there's private land too in between, right there. That one. I believe the owners are from Oahu. Yeah. And just real quick question, Karen. In the harbor illustration, what is this? I'm sorry if this is a stupid question, but what is that finger going out there? Industrial? I mean...
It's the harbor, but I don't...
Was that an Army Corps of Engineers thing, or...?
It's the way it is in the maps. It's the parcel.
Okay.
And I Always thought it was kind of weird too.
Because that's like right through freight train surf spot.
They better not
We don't
develop
want to
it.
touch.
It's industrial.
That's I was like, gosh, I gotta ask this question, but I don't know if I'm gonna look like a fool. Like, what is that? Thank you.
Just one comment. When you're looking at the designations, don't just look at what is on the ground now. Think of what you want there in 20 years. And when you have more regular buses, people don't need cars. We have buses that run once an hour. You need a car. This could be a place that serves both South, West, and Central.
So you should look at Appendix F to look at what the different land use designations map to in terms of zoning. So transit-oriented corridor, it maps to, for example, B2 and B3, business community, business central, which means up to 140-foot high buildings. Whereas small town center maps to B1 and B2, so max 90-foot high buildings. Small town center and neighborhood center are pretty much alike in most regards, except in terms of what kinds of residential they allow. Where a neighborhood center allows for duplexes, where a small town center doesn't. So if we're going to suggest a designation other than transit-oriented corridors, I think it would be either small town center or neighborhood center, and most likely small town center because there's so much business there already, and it's going to stay. Daniel?
I'm just wondering if putting the cart before the horse, because we're planning to talk about the land use designations next week, and maybe we'll make some changes to those. And right now we're discussing this sub area, looking at the current land use designation descriptions of it. What happens if we change TOC or others as a committee decide to make changes? And will that invalidate any motions we make on this sub area if the changes we make affect TOC, EC, the other designations? So that's why I'm saying, are we putting the cart before the horse? Should we get comfortable with the land use designations before we really get into the maps?
Ideally we would, but we don't have it on the agenda to make decisions there, so we can't really do that. I mean, that would be a violation, I think, of the Sunshine Rule.
So are we proceeding with the caveat that we may change and then have to come back and revisit?
I think that's the only thing we can do, yes.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Wayne and then Jackie.
Mr. Chairman and committee members, don't forget we heard testimony from people that consider this at Maui Bay a whale sanctuary. Whales come in and give birth whether you care or not. And they're mammals like us. Prior to this, and Kyoki can back me up, Malaya was once known as a fishing village. The Ting Company ran a aku fishing boats out of there. And they collected bait fish to go and aku fish. We already heard that from testimony about a great deal of our reefs being destroyed from runoff. And I'm wondering how much we care about preserving Maui and watching this coastal environment getting exploited. And who's speaking on behalf of the whales and the ocean environment, the reef population? And when I hear that we're planning to treat our sewage there, what about the consequences of how the chemicals are going to affect the ocean environment? I look at the transit-oriented corridor, and it allows for a lot of urban growth, housing, apartments. I remember even at one point, the old landowner, A&B, had proposed to build a golf course there. And anyway, Mr. Chairman, if you're looking for a motion on this community plan map, I would hope that we don't allow this color to be on the portion of the map tonight.
So I think, is anyone ready to make a motion on what they would like to see that the triangle be as far as land use designation? Mike?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we make it small town center.
Is there a second? Second by Vernon. Okay, discussion? Sorry, Jackie, I missed you.
For clarification, are you only referring to the parts that are currently proposed as red to be small town and center and not transit-oriented corridor?
With limited understanding, I was thinking the whole area.
You mean the triangle, though, not the harbor, yeah? Not the harbor?
Yes.
Okay, and
Thank
not
you.
the residential, the
Right.
apartments.
Right.
Okay, so just the triangle.
Okay. Yeah.
You're back?
Okay.
Discussion, Vernon?
So I was thinking the same lines, it was neighborhood center or small town center. Is there possibility that we can still do like a bus hub, a transportation hub in either or neighborhood or small town center? Because I think I thought of this place like an in between location for transportation, like a hub. Can that still be done in a small town center or neighborhood center?
It'll probably just remain the hub because of the location. It would be more appropriate to say small town center because neighborhood center it's based on the number of neighborhoods it serves, and this definitely serves more neighborhoods than just a small neighborhood. It's more like a small town scale.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other discussion? Comments? Wayne?
Karen, is the current owner of this color that is being proposed Mahi Pono?
Currently, we're only talking about the small red triangle on the map, and that is just where the Maui Ocean Center is. And there are a number of owners, but I don't believe any of those are Mahi Pono. They're all commercial owners. It's like, I think the Maui Ocean Center is one of the owners. I don't know all the others because I haven't talked to them.
Yeah, I think the My Ocean Center actually owns the parking lot. That last I checked. Vernon?
So it's commercial now. We cannot leave them just commercial. We gotta name them one of those towns.
you can designate it economic or EC, but that would be saying that you don't want housing there ever. Whereas if you put small town center, if the landowners want to propose some housing, that's saying you support lower density housing than TOC. Lower density than TOC, but not just economic development.
Okay, are we ready for a vote or a decision rather? Any objections to Daniel? Object? Okay. So, well, let's just see if we have an alternative proposal first. Wayne?
No.
No, not yet. I want to see if there's an alternative proposal rather than just a vote.
Mr. Chair,
Okay.
would it be okay to ask Daniel if he has any ideas of what his ideas?
I stated my issue about the horse before the carriage, and so I'm struggling with voting yes to a designation that may change. And so that's my basis for the objection at this point.
Okay, so in that case, I'm going to put it to a vote. Will those who are in favor of the motion, please raise your hand.
And the motion is small town commercial.
Small town center for the triangle. And those against? And those abstaining?
So 6 noes, 2 yeses and 2 abstains, which equals 4 yeses.
Okay, so the motion fails. But if the objection is based on what Daniel said, then we can't really make any other decision either. Is that correct?
No, I wouldn't come to that conclusion.
Say it again?
I wouldn't come to that conclusion.
Okay. So what would you propose for the triangle?
I'm not proposing anything for the triangle. I'm just objecting to the motion. I'm not proposing anything.
But I think that means that we can't decide on any other designation for that triangle either. Kavika?
I just wanted to point out that if the motion fails, then the current proposal stands.
Wayne?
I just wanted to ask, what is the current designation on the community plan?
Commercial. It's commercial in the 1998 plan.
The 1998 plan, it is commercial. The default maps for this update are the department maps are the default. So if a vote does not go through, whatever it is, the department recommendation is what is put forward. So I assume you guys are planning on coming back to vote on this, but you do need to vote to change things.
So based upon the no vote that just went through, it remains transit-oriented commercial.
All right, I move that we not adopt the department's recommendation to make this transient TOC, transient oriented corridor, TOC. That's my motion.
What would you like to replace it with? Would you like it to be EC, which would be the closest to commercial?
I'd just like to leave my motion, and then if any other motions need to be made after that, we can make it. Do I have to have something to replace it with, or can I say, oh, I'll leave it. My motion is not to designate it as a TOC.
You have an idea, Vernon?
Yeah, we just change red to pink, and that might help.
Industrial?
Yeah, don't mind me. That's a lot for absorb.
You mean the employment center pink? That one?
Yeah, there's two pinks.
Which pink?
There's the darker one and the lighter one.
Yeah, never mind.
So for me, I'm sorry, Chair, if I may speak. It's kind of like I try to pick the least of all the evils here. You know what I mean? So it's difficult. Employment center. There was some commercial space designated there. It depends on what would be proposed. You know, I wouldn't be opposed to a commercial center if it was something functional to the area. Small town center, residential, that always scares me, you know? So kind of in a pickle.
Sure.
Yes.
It's been commercial for, gosh, what, Wayne, 25 years maybe? And it's never really taken off. So I think the market's already spoken that there's no demand for commercial there. So if it's not commercial, what could it be? And I think, I think residential is probably the what's left. I don't see it being an employment center.
Yeah.
To me, it's just too isolated.
So many questions.
Kind of in the middle of nowhere to be a employment center.
Yeah.
Commercial. I mean, is basically
what
you got
type of rents? What type of those? So many questions. You know, what people are you gonna attract to live there? You know, like.
I think that area would be. My guess is it would be affordable housing.
Daniel?
I had a motion, but it didn't look like you got a second.
Nope.
So let me, okay, I'm looking at rural village, okay? RV. The description, rural village community plan designation is intended to preserve the character of Maui's small rural towns and includes services that support nearby rural residential communities. Uses within the designation include a mix of neighborhoods serving commercial and public, quasi-public uses, such as parks, schools, and churches, and may include limited residential. Rural villages are generally small, do not exceed the approximate area of 4 corners of an intersection, and have clear edges, like this does, defined by land use, building types, or natural features. So this is a lower density use, but does allow for some residential, limited residential, and provides services to nearby communities. So I think among the selections, this would have the lowest intensity.
And impact, correct?
Impact.
If you want to go low intensity, neighborhood center would be the closest to being appropriate. Rural residential or rural village is like Kahakaloa, like the church there that has the banana bread stand. It is not Maui Ocean Center.
Oh. Someone can
like
spell
banana
banana
bread.
bread in the parking
I
lot.
like banana bread.
Neighborhood center. Okay, let me read neighborhood center. Neighborhood center community plan designation is intended to include services that support nearby residential within pedestrian-oriented commercial nodes. Uses within this designation are primarily neighborhood serving with small-scale buildings like traditional mom and pop shops, provide opportunities for people to take care of daily activities close to home, pedestrian, it's basically multimodal, may include residential uses such as a small lot, single family, multifamily. I think we're going to have to define all those. We discuss this. Huh.
Does this center seem similar to Suda Store to you? Suda Store is a neighborhood center where that used to be. That's the closest thing you have in South Maui. For West, like Oluwalu Store, that's might be a neighborhood center. This has already had more intense development than neighborhood center even. It is a small town center, it's just lacking residential.
I mean, Pacific Whale and Maui Ocean Center, those are not neighborhood serving businesses. Everett?
I make a motion that we move it to residential, which allows small town commercial uses, public, quasi-public, which I think could also include public parking lots and townhouses, and I guess this could also include apartments, couldn't it, Karen?
Second
Again,
motion.
already the use that is on the triangle is not residential. There's not, in the triangle, there's not a single residence currently.
But there are only really two commercials too.
So that's where if you want it redeveloped as residential, it should be more small town center because that encourages the mixed use. If it's the residential you don't like, then the economic center would be appropriate.
All right, then I'll try again on my motion for a small town center as an alternative to transit-oriented commercial that would enable the residential that could be affordable housing for people working out of the resorts in West Maui.
Second the motion.
That was the motion that failed.
We're trying again. Now I've got a better second.
Okay.
I don't think I had a second the first time.
Oh, no. Wayne seconded residential?
So you amended your movement motion for residential?
Small town center.
From residential to small town center.
And Wayne supports that? Okay. Okay. One more time.
Can I speak
Wayne.
to the motion?
Go ahead, Wayne.
You see people from west side driving to the hotels to Wailea. You see people from Maui Lani, Wailuku, driving early morning to go to work at Wailea. If there's anything that this committee has not addressed for our community, it is affordable housing that can help our local residents by giving them a hope. And I think this is a central area. People up the country also come out.
Any other discussion? Daniel?
The issue I have with high density residential in this area, I think, or more intensity of residential which small town center brings, is that That's a very hostile area to live. I don't know. It's extremely windy there. That's a wind corridor. And it's a view corridor, so whatever you build along that highway, it's going to erase the view from that road, Honoapi'ilani Highway, to the ocean. And people value that view. And that's a cultural resource. The view corridor is a cultural resource. And what was the other concern? View corridor, wind. There was one more. I can't remember what it is. Oh, I have a hard time imagining. I guess it's possible to put residential units in there. Probably won't be single family. It'll be multifamily units, right? And it'll probably not be one story. It'll probably be at least 2 or more stories. And if you can imagine 2 more stories up close to that highway, and how it's going to change the character of that area. One of our goals is preserve sense of place and character. Yeah, there are places that we need housing, but I don't think you want housing in a wind tunnel, right? And they've proposed housing across the street where the Spencer land was. For many years, they tried to get that through, but that was shot down. It was shut down by many planning directors. It was shut down by the GPAC. I just don't know if that corridor is a good place to build affordable housing, if that's what you're shooting for. I think we should protect the area and find someplace else to build housing, but not. Let's keep that a transportation corridor. It should be a hub. Quasi-public includes transportation, in my view. Can be a transportation hub. So anyway, just a few of my thoughts. I'm not supporting the motion.
Good.
Thank you. I just want to remind everyone that the designations that you consider should be consistent with the zoning. And so if you look at that table on page 158, so a lot of this land, I believe it's like B2, and so you're going to want to make sure it's turning off. You're going to want to make sure that whatever you propose is going to be consistent with the zoning there. And then regarding view planes, that would be addressed when they come in for their SMA major, because that's definitely a concern when special management area permits come in. Thank you.
Verna?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up because I just started to get to the B1, B2. Those are designation in that area, right? The Ocean Center, the parking lot. So, and then going back to Daniel, yeah, to build homes over there, you almost got to you probably got to get insurance, wind insurance, for real. I mean,
And fire
across
the street.
And anybody that builds there and sell it and then they buy it, they're gonna have to deal with it. It's kind of not. It's like you're building close to a shoreline, but you're just building in the shores of the wind kind of thing. So the Ocean Center, they deal with it, but it is an issue. But they're there. They got to deal with it. You go mini golf, the balls never go where it's supposed to go. That's not me. That's the wind. So that's where I'm stuck at, because what if I said rural village? Still got B1 over there, and only thinking because to build in those areas, It just don't make sense because of the where it's located. It's in a wind tunnel. But who's going to support that rural village, right? So, but the small town center is looking more in alignment with what it's there for, commercial.
Daniel?
Okay, this is where we're putting cart before the house. We haven't even discussed small town center. You can put, I don't know what you can't put in a small town center at this point, until we discuss it and vet it. And that's a concern to me. I just want to vet what you mean by what are the uses, allowable uses for a small town center. And so that's why I'm maybe leaning towards something with less density, and Karen recommended, what is that, neighborhood center. Maybe that would be more, to me, more appropriate than a small town center.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Brian?
I guess I have a question for long range. If it was originally commercial, now kind of designated as a EC, what was the rationale of putting in the residential component?
It does already serve as kind of a transit hub between all the parts of the island. So the possibility of having maybe some apartments there where people could have a shorter transit. It's also not a terrible place. I stayed there for a week. It was beautiful. It's right next to a great beach that's not really occupied. It's a good place for having a bus hub and having some residential. That's not necessarily going to happen next week or next year, but in 20 years, maybe there will be a desire to have an apartment building there.
And I guess next question that I would have is, what in that area, if there was residential, approximately how many units could go in there? Obviously, it's going to depend on what type, but I mean, like 100, 200, 500?
That's the range.
How many acres is it? Do we know how many acres? Recognizing part of it's already developed. So maybe 15 units per acre, maybe 100 units.
I think it's about 25, 30 acres, something like that total, including the already developed part.
Karen, are you measuring the parking lot? Because some of that has to remain parking as parking requirements for the commercial activities, so it may not be entirely developable. And I just want to add that even if it's designated one of these that says residential can happen there, it doesn't mean that it will happen. Allows for the opportunity of options.
Yeah, just the parking lot is like 10 acres, a little under.
Chair,
Yes.
I'm just wondering what's wagging the dog. Is the tail wagging the dog or is the dog wagging the tail? In other words, is zoning have priority? Well, community plan has a place in land use, and so does zoning. So we're looking at the zoning to help us decide what the community plan designation should be. Can we just ignore the zoning? And you sure?
In that case,
What's zoning rules or community plan rules? Does zoning follow community plans?
Community plans can support a change in zoning, but if they have the zoning for something, they have the zoning. If they want to change in zoning, that will affect. If they want to go from B2 to B3, possibly a change in zoning the community plan could affect that.
you need to look at the implications. I mean, you have to look at what are the implications for zoning if you make a CP change.
Chair.
You can't ignore them. Kyoki?
I mean, in the draft plan, which was also broken down to here, we're reminded to be operating at the level of community plan. I know they go hand in hand and all that, but this was an important phrase that was put in our presentation. Operate at level of community plan, not zoning.
But you have to look at the implications. I mean, if you make a change, you can't just ignore it and say, I don't care what happens.
Yeah.
Daniel?
Chair, but isn't it what we want? Isn't it the vision of the community that we are trying to achieve here? What we want to see there, what we want to see happen there?
Yes, but the decisions we make have implications. They have implications for the zoning. I mean, if we say that this is going to be an economic center, for example, or an employment center rather, it means no residential. And zoning should follow that. I mean, there are the appendix after this, which zones correspond to what community plan. If there's no correspondence, then it's kind of meaningless to even have a community plan. Zoning has to follow community plan. Community plan is the community's will. Everett?
Okay.
Kyoki first.
Sorry, Everett. So of course you guys know I'm struggling with this. So some of my comments maybe can help you further understand why I'm struggling with this. History of that area. Bottom left corner in the red area, that little corner, okay? The Ocean Center, it's built already. That is where the Kapoli village once stood. There are Kanaka living all through this area. People think Maui of a dry, arid, windy place, and it is in this day. But there was sustenance in this. People grew things. There's aquifers that I hope never get tapped into. One is destroyed by the boat ramp. Their main one, Kapoli Stream. If you come now back further towards the Maui store side, okay, the Uno family, the Hussies, the Mountain Mitsui used to live there. I'm mentioning all the original Maui people right now. They're all dead and gone. May they rest in peace. This is who I'm speaking of. They're no longer here. Residents, HCNS, okay, HCNS POW. So then it gets sold. And then we give way to landowners that want to just build. And is it the best thing for this area? So that's what I struggle with. Sorry to sound like, not in my backyard, but it's kind of like Maui is such a small ecosystem, you guys. Thank you.
Everett?
There's a motion and a second. Can we call for the vote?
Any further discussion? Okay, so we'll take a vote on this. Again, those in favor of the motion, which is small town center, right? Small town center for the triangle only. Please raise your hand. Okay, and those against?
Any abstains?
And those abstaining?
You're abstaining?
Anyone else abstaining? We're gonna get okay.
So the two voting yes were Everett and Mike. Abstentions were Vernon and Keoki. And Wayne, what is Wayne's vote? Abstain? Aye. So 3 yeses, 2 abstentions.
Okay, so I'll put my vote on the aye. So the motion passes. So small town center for the triangle.
Can you repeat the vote again? I'm sorry.
So the votes for yes were Everett, Mike, and Wayne. The abstentions were Vernon and Keoki. The noes were Daniel, Brian, Jen, Randall, and Cody. And then Rob was the tiebreaker at yes.
So the motion fails.
Motion passes 6-5.
The abstentions are, the abstentions are counted as yes votes.
Okay. Do we need a break, or can we continue on to the How Old is Street section? Continue on. Okay. So so as I said, if we could we enlarge that to How Old is section so you can kind of see what the lots there look like. So these are almost all condos along How Old is Street, and most of them are this APT1 and APT2 apartment zoned, but they are, through the Minatoya ruling, they are granted short-term rental status. So they're short-term rentals, but it's multifamily. And the proposal of the planning department is to make it residential, which is basically status quo, continuing as it is. The request from the Maui Village Association is to make it all hotel resort, or resort hotel. And I think that the upside of that is that it recognizes the current use. The downside is that it means that that's the way it'll be forever. It means that the county does no longer have the option in the future of changing the usage.
I move for residential.
Everett moves to residential. Second by Mike. Any discussion? Randall?
Yeah, I just had a question. Years ago, I went to a restaurant in one of the buildings there, the waterfront. Yeah, is that still there, and is that still zoned commercial?
Randall, do you remember which building it was in? Was it like closer to the harbor? Because those first 2 condos, Malaya Mermaid and Malaya Yacht Marina, are industrial zoned. Like if you know Malaya Mermaid, that one has Trade Winds, the little deli in there. So those are M1, close to, just like the harbor zoning. And so I think they can have these different uses as compared to the ones that are apartment district. Correct.
Sure.
Except that they are also proposed to residential in this. So they would also become residential. They can't do vacation rentals, but one of them does.
Not legally.
Well, they do. They've been doing it forever. Keoki?
Chair, I had a question for planning, Karen. So on the tax map key, it shows the Milawai condominium light industrial community plan designation. Is that because that building is still privately owned, or the land is privately owned? I just wonder why that one sticks out as a LI. Milawai.
I think you're referring, Kyogi, to the zoning, and that one is split zoned.
Correct.
Because if you see the properties going closer to the harbor, that's light industrial, and then the ones going closer to Haycraft are all apartment. So for that parcel, the parking structure is on the industrial side, and then the residential units are on the the parking structure is on the industrial side, and the housing units are on the apartment side.
Okay.
But it's an oddball because it's split zoned.
But the land is still privately owned, yeah? Yeah.
You're talking about the purple at the bottom there?
So Milawai is where the old waterfront restaurant is. It's right on the eastern breakwater. No more that way. I just was wondering, out of curiosity, if that was, again, Malay history.
Yeah, they're two oddball parcels, but by the proposal from the planning department, they would both become residential.
Yeah. I still remember when I was a child that was a residential owned by the Crockett family, Grandma Crockett and Judge Crockett.
Daniel?
I'm just curious if the community plan designation was resort hotel, would that affect their real property taxes?
They currently pay a hotel rate for the land underneath and short-term vacation rental for the individual units, unless they have a homeowner exemption.
Okay.
Or it's their permanent home. The thing that designating it resort hotel could do is enable a change in zoning to resort hotel, whereas now it is actually zoned residential. So it wouldn't affect their taxes at all. It wouldn't help the county at all. It would help the owners.
Clarifying question, help the owners because they would have the option to change zoning?
Because if they change zoning, if the county ever wanted to pursue having apartments be residential again, the county could not. It would be hotel, and hotel has the outright use to vacation rental.
Further discussion?
Again, as I mentioned about consistency with zoning, changing the community plan designation to hotel would be inconsistent with the zoning. And if they were to come in to try to change the zoning to be consistent, keep in mind hotel use allows nightclubs, discos, bars, restaurants, weddings, and all those other things that are not allowed in apartment zoning district.
Daniel?
But isn't that what we want for that area? Other question I had, sorry to be stupid, but there are two lots there, right? That are the two lots that are there? Are they hotel zone? What about the two residential lots? The rest of it is
those are between Kanayanalu and Ma'alaya Banyans. Two residential, I believe, still two different owners. Yeah, Karen.
But there are two lots, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. One was the Cahos and one was the Haglers, historically. The last two residentials in that area.
They're different owners now.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of them actually does have apartment zoning.
Really, huh? Uh-oh.
Okay, any further discussion on the, we have a motion and a second for approving residential for this entire block here. Wayne?
I'm surprised that Malaya Community Association, not a member from the association came here. I saw a Little Britain letter, and I guess they're scared to come before this committee. Who the hell is telling these people we need more tourists? Not against the tourists, but I want to be selfish. And for our local community that's being bombarded with the visitor industry, enough is enough. Enough is enough. I heard Mele Apana crying. Somebody asked her, where you live? And she said, I live in Wailuku. And she said, he heard her tonight. You were worried about the the water. They're taking all the water and shipping it down to Wailea, McKenna, and using these homes, watering their yards because they can't afford to water their yards. Why don't the hotels give us a break and reuse the water that's coming from the sewer treatment plants to water their yards and areas? Shame on the Malaya Community Association.
Daniel, we have a motion in a second, so let's move towards that.
I just Wayne, the Ma'alaya Community Association is now the Ma'alaya Village Association. That's a new name.
I stand corrected.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? Any objections? Okay, fine. We have adopted residential for the Hau'oli segment there. Are there any other issues or any other questions for any of the other areas that we haven't talked about in Ma'alaya? Ma'alaya map. Everett?
And I think this is inappropriate for me to bring up at this point. I think I should have brought it up quite a while ago. But putting a road, Mauka, of the park, the wetlands, just laying out a roadway. And no, it's not a land use designation, and maybe it's something that we catch it. Maybe I bring it up at the very end, but I wish I'd brought it up earlier. Just moving the roadway, Malka.
You guys have both a policy and an action item about that.
Yeah, I think it's covered.
I do have bad news, though. You didn't actually adopt Small Town Center for the Triangle, so you'll have to revisit that later.
Say it again?
You did not actually adopt Small Town Center because you had, it was short by 1 vote. You need 7 votes because it has to be of the total quorum, not of the people present.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We'll go around and around and around.
Okay.
Can I ask you, Everett, where are you talking about? The road, Mauka? Exactly.
Maybe up at the stoplight by
the junction.
Yes.
To move it Mauka along the foothill.
Yep.
Karen.
No. Move it. Yes.
This is the Kalia bypass.
Yeah,
he's talking
basically it would come out of
Okay.
come out of Veterans Highway, and I think it would come out of Veterans Highway pretty close to where
the refuge is.
Well, where the potential Malca North-South Collector Road would come out.
Right.
Near Hawaiian Homelands.
Yeah, I got you. I think the DHHL presentation last week kind of popped some ideas in my head too, that hopefully everyone is being proactive.
Yep.
And we can do this all in coordination, because I think if we do it right, as you guys know, I've been a proponent of this bypass road. If we do it right, it can come out the right place, the right time.
And I think we could get probably federal dollars
Correct.
from Parks Department,
Correct.
National Parks Department, get Hawaiian Homeland's federal dollars. Get maybe it could be a good partnership.
Okay. Anything else on any other segments of the proposal? Daniel?
So we're finishing up. I just had a question about the is it the ag designations? Are the ag designations above the green areas? Both green areas, right? Those are ag designations, correct?
By the
So
map, yeah.
there's this color green is ag.
Okay.
Then the darker, it's actually showing up blue on here because I have another overlay, but there's a darker green that's the open space for the gulches. And then there's the super like army green, and that is state conservation. And that is state conservation. It doesn't really change.
Oh, thank you, because they all look the same color to me.
I'll bring the black and white map Johan made. That might be helpful.
Okay, thanks.
Chair, can I ask, the handout map, if you blew that up, can you see the actual satellite grid? Or is it just, can you go Mauka? Not that, okay, so you see where this little corner is right here? Right there, that little nub. Right there. Can you blow that little thing up? Right where that little corner is. Will it enlighten that? Drag it down so that it goes more up. Okay, it got lighter. How come it didn't get lighter again? Do you have to blow it up more? Okay. Chair, permission to point something, please.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Daniel?
Okay, so I know what I wanted to ask about the ag area, which in the current plan is Project District 11. So when we adopt this plan, what happens to the project districts?
There are no project districts proposed by the planning department for South Maui.
So there'll just be no project districts?
No project districts proposed.
This shows the project districts from the 1998 community plan, and those will be changed to the current designations. So the project districts in other areas are designated with the updated designations. And then if there is no project district, then it's designated as like agriculture for this area.
Okay, this has a project District 11. So when the draft plan, when it becomes adopted, that will be ag land, the designation, not project district. Okay, thank you.
That's the proposal. Any other comments on the proposed designations? Sub-area 1. Do we need to break, or can we just go to the decision? Seems like we're running out of objections here to the proposal. Would someone make a motion to adopt the remaining designations for the other areas, besides the triangle and the Haole residential district?
I move to adopt the remaining ag designations.
Second by Keoki. Any further discussion? Daniel?
I just had, for the harbor area, it's employment center, right? Is it employment center? So I'm just wondering why harbors don't fall under, what is it, SPD, special, is it special, what is it, SPD? Special purpose. Like, under special purpose, it talks about, it gives you one example, airport. That's, because it doesn't fall on anything else. Wouldn't a harbor be the same thing? Because it doesn't fall under any other designation. Wouldn't that be a special purpose? That could fit that too? As opposed to an employment. So are we going to look at all harbors on Maui? Kaului Harbor, will that be looked as an employment center as opposed to a special purpose, what is it, district? Seems like it should fall under something, I don't know. It could fall under a special purpose, right? Instead of an economic center, or employment center rather.
But the idea is to use special purpose district very, very sparingly, only for things that you can't fit other things into. So if it is an employment center, we should just treat it as an employment center. And it is. I mean, that's what it is right now.
So is an airport. The airport employs a lot of people. It's perspective, yeah. Doesn't an airport employ a lot of people? There's a lot of businesses in there.
The harbor's commercial. I mean,
Airport is commercial. I think it's more special.
Daniel, no worry, they're not going to build one airport in Maui. Because you know where the first airport was on Maui?
Yeah.
In Maui.
Yeah, right, in the mudflats. I know.
Further discussion?
But this doesn't include the mudflats.
Further discussion? Okay, any objections to the motion? Daniel objects, okay, so let's vote. Okay, those in favor of the motion to adopt the planning department's proposals for the other areas that's other than the triangle and the residential Hau'oli Street District, please raise your hand.
A point of order, are we voting on everything?
Yes.
There's a motion for that?
Yes, and those opposed? Daniel? No. Any abstentions? Vernon, you abstain? So you said yes. Okay.
9 yeses and 1 no.
Okay, so motion passes. So we have now adopted statuses for all the 9 yeses and 1 no. So we have now adopted designations for all the areas of the Ma'alaya sub-area. And I think that brings us to the end of our agenda, right? We do have an item on the agenda which says other committee business. So someone wants to bring something else up, something we forgot, like a break. Do you want to take a break or do you want to adjourn? Mike?
Move to adjourn.
Okay. Meeting, community plan meeting closes at 8:08 p.m.